This is my new book, Glenariff, Mines, Railway and Pier, The Rise and Fall of a Victorian Enterprise, and it was published on Amazon Kindle on the 10th of August 2019, and it's a story of a little narrow gauge railway and a pier which was built to provide access for the shipment of ironstone from Glenariff in County Antrim out to sea to iron smelters in Glasgow, in the Barrow-in-Furness area and South Wales. And the company was established in the early 1870s in the northeast of Ireland, in County Antrim, in Glenariff, at a little place called Waterfoot, and this was the right on the coast where it began to build a pier. It had renting land from the Earl of Antrim and the deposits from the hills high above. Now the railway just ran down in a continuous 1 in 40 gradient from the mines high up on the side of the glen, down the side of the glen and out onto the little ledge at sea level, where the company built some accommodation for its miners in particular, and also they constructed a pier out into Red Bay, and the little trucks were run straight out onto the pier, where they were then tipped and the ironstone ran down in chutes down into sailing ships. And this is the story of the company's operation. So as I say, it was established in 1870, and it took several years to build all of the bits and pieces related to the railway, and in particular to build the pier, which was a very difficult operation indeed, and only fragments of that pier still remain, battered by the weather over what is it now, 130 odd years. But the railway arch, the railway bridge that came over the coast road, which had been built in the 1820s 30s, this still remains. The piers of the bridge still stand. It was originally an iron bridge that crossed over the road there, made in Belfast, and this is known today as the White Arch. But that is the area, that is the remains of the railway coming over the coast road. Now Glenariff is beautiful glen, typical hill farms, and the interaction between the company and these hill farmers and their landlords forms a major part of the book. The different problems that they faced, and all the sort of arguments and all the rest of it that happened during the construction and then operation of the railway. So that's a really lively part of the book, and it's all based on the correspondence from the manager, who is based down at Waterfoot, back to the company secretary in London, and we're very lucky that that correspondence has survived. Well, this is the track of the railway as it still exists in the Glenariff Country Park, which was the estate, originally the estate of Mr. Dobbs, and which was taken over by the Belfast and Northern Counties Railway and developed into the what became the Glenariff Forest Park, and is now and was then in the late 1890s and through to this day is open to the public. And the track ran up from the glen, and then it formed a dead end, and from that a hedge shunt ran backwards, climbing higher to the level of the mines. And this was so the locomotive hauled the empty wagons up, and then it propelled them along river in the reverse direction higher up to the level of the mines. And then at the top of that there was a cable drum which ran to the siding that ran along the front of the openings of these mines, these adits that were built into the into the hillside. Now, although as you can see, the trees have completely covered the area to this day, the level, you can see that higher on the right hand side of this particular photograph, and that was it. And then off to the right would have been the entrances to the mines. So it was a zigzag coming down from the hillside. There is very little to indicate what is left of the railway, but there are some things to see. This is an old magazine photograph of the White Arch back in the 1950s, and you can see the building in the distance there on the left, which is the old locomotive shed, which has survived all this time. Well, unfortunately it didn't survive into the very present day, because part of it has now been incorporated into a brand new structure, which is the parish hall at Waterfoot. But you can clearly see the stone built, very well built stone built structure that they've incorporated into, they've enlarged into their parish hall. So the arch is there showing where the windows were into the loco shed, and then there's an end wall here that's still preserved in the formation of the parish hall, and that was the entrance into the loco shed. And so that's well worth seeing. And here we are looking back from the loco shed back towards the sea, with the line of the embankment of the railway that would have headed out onto the embankment and over the White Arch and then onto the raised section of the pier for shooting the material into the wagons. So this is a little known railway, but it's also very well funded. This is the row of cottages which still stands, very fine buildings indeed, on the main road there at Waterfoot, and the railway would have come in almost parallel to these behind them. So my book is $4.99 on Amazon Kindle only, and I think it gives a good history of this little known narrow gauge line, which only survived for about 15 years, but it's the day-to-day operation of this railway which really intrigues, and the background to it. And luckily most of that correspondence which I mentioned between the manager, Mr. Gardner, at Waterfoot on the wild side of the coast, and the secretary, Mr. Ham, in London, has been preserved, and I've been able to quote from that extensively and use that extensively in this book. So I hope you might be tempted to buy a copy, to get it from Amazon Kindle, and I hope you'll enjoy it.